And Scott was not able to be with us. We have one of his coworkers who's so kindly joined us. And is it Sagi? Am I saying it wrong? Sagi. It is right. Okay, good. Sagi. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll see if some other people stroll in. But in the meantime, how about we start off with some introductions? I guess. Would you like to start?
Sure. Ben Canner, 3V Infrastructure. We are effectively an infrastructure investor. We do level 2 EV charging in multifamily. So we put in all the infrastructure. We manage all the chargers, and then we actually profit share with the property owners once the economics support it. So good to be here.
Mick, would you like to go next?
So I'm Mick Gilbert. I'm from Fairstead and Fairstead Ventures. So Fairstead is an owner, operator, developer of multifamily housing, mostly affordable. We're in 28 states, about 30,000 units. And then we have Fairstead Ventures, which is the strategic VC arm, or the CVC of Fairstead. So what we look for are things that are really going to move the needle on NOI. So things that will save us money, things that will make us money, and things we have to do. And what we look to do on the venture side is to invest strategically where our investment can benefit with us as a customer.
All right, Sagi?
My name is Sagi Alkobi. I'm Director of Operations at Universe Holdings. We're a multifamily owner-operator based out of Southern California.
All right, Jeremy?
Jeremy Cohen, Director of Real Estate Partnerships at SWTCH. SWTCH is an EV charging solutions company. We're the software that powers the EV chargers. We focus on the multi-tenant asset class, and really excited to be here, speak to you all.
I'm Kelly Soljacich. I work for Modern Ventures, which is a generalist VC fund that invests in technology in and around real estate. However, I do come from an ownership background, 25 years in institutional asset and portfolio management, along with about 6 years in technology and sustainability tech rollouts on the ownership side. Let's get started. Okay. So now, sorry, everyone, I have to put my glasses on because I printed it out too small.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so our first question. Sustainability has moved from optional to expected. How has that shift changed the way you evaluate asset performance, capital planning, and competitive positioning? I believe, Mick, we had you going first. Would you like to?
Yeah, so I think there are kind of two aspects of sustainability. One is kind of the branding, license to operate. Let's just put that in the optics bucket. And the other piece is really the NOI piece, things that are going to save money on OPEX, water, energy, what we would call electricity, what we call utility interoperability. EV charging might be one of those, demand response, demand management, battery storage. So those are all the things we look at. For us, we're actually focused very much so on the NOI piece of it to increase asset value. And I'd say less so focused on the optics. Now, I understand for some companies, REITs, things that have Euro money, LPs, there's a lot more reporting and things like that. So everyone has to look individually at their portfolio and their company about which things are really going to matter.
Right, or if you have requirements.
Right.
All right, let's see. Scott was going to go next. So, Sigi, do you have a response?
Yeah, I think, just to add to that, I think, sustainability from my perspective was kind of a marketing buzzword over time. Initially, when you kind of first heard about the word sustainability, just what is it? It was kind of this mysterious thing. But, as owner operators, it's something that we really consider when looking at our assets, performance, our CapEx plans, looking out into the future, future-proofing the asset, preserving the properties. I think it's really essential because utility costs, especially in California, they're going up in double digits in some cases. So finding ways to reduce the usage on these various utilities, whether it's solar powered, renewable energy, and then also looking at ways to partner with the utility providers. There's a lot of rebate programs out there, which can really help with implementing things like EV charging or low flow toilets. So I think that's really the perspective that we take when looking at sustainability on the property level.
Kelly, can I add one thing which I forgot to mention? So that's on the OPEX side. On the CapEx side, what we're also seeing is sustainability regulations come into play. So that falls into that must-do category. So for places like New York, Boston, I think Denver, a lot of these decarbonization, electrification mandates, and as you said, we need to put in our capital plans to make sure we don't make an investment now that is going to be obsoleted by a regulation that we can actually see coming.
Absolutely. Okay, so our second topic, which sustainability investments are proving to deliver both measurable environmental impact and durable financial returns across portfolios? I think, Ben, you want to give that a shot?
Sure, I'll give that a shot. Well, so in a prior life, I was both in portfolio management for a large REIT, as well as I was actually did infrastructure investing for a large bank. So I think that when I was doing infrastructure investing for a large bank, all these sustainability things, they need to be durable, right? And they need to, you cannot have just regulations or the governments or subsidies being a key driver to them. They have to be able to stand alone, and both from a financial, just a capital implementation perspective, but also from a financial returns perspective. And so I think that that's a key differentiator that we really need to think about is, these things are not going to last. I mean, when we had, solar panels coming in from China very cheap, and there wasn't parity, with the other, types of generation out there, whether that was coal or gas fire plants or things of that sort, it just wasn't going to be sustainable, right? You had to have those subsidies coming in order to actually get a large amount of implementation there. And so, for any of these things, I think that you need to get it to a place where it is economically viable on its own, or else, they're just not going to last, right? And subsidies go away, whether it's a red or a blue or a purple or a pink or a green issue, like nobody really cares, right? If these things are gonna, it cannot be kind of fluctuating with the wind, with the administrations. Like, these things need to be a standalone good investment for it to be able to be durable and for it to be able to be something that sticks.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Jeremy, from the hardware perspective, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, on the hardware and software side, I would say data has been everything. So if we're speaking about ESG initiatives as it pertains to EV charging, there is real actionable data that owners and operators can pull from their dashboard to see true carbon offset emissions. So when they look across their parking lots and now they see so many EV cars compared to traditional gasoline cars, there's real data there now that is showing how much CO2 offset, you are basically incurring or you are participating in at the building level. So that's real actionable, measures through the data. And I'm sure everyone has been hearing about data, this whole, panel and this whole, conference. And then on the other side, you have smart technology. So you have software that is working at the building level too, to basically speak to the panels and speak to the building. So as it pertains to energy is consistently going up and down through the course of a day. So you put EV chargers in at a building, everyone worries, electricity is going to go up, peak demand is going to go up. But with smart technology, smart software, smart hardware, it's actually intertwined to really make the grid way more healthy, because it'll offset peak demand. At the charger level, you can throttle chargers up and down through the course of the day and the night when the energy fluctuates. And then as it pertains to ROI, I know Sagi spoke about this earlier, there are just so many incentives to offset the cost of these CapEx projects. So whether that be a state, a city, utility, there's just so much out there to really capture that free money to really offset these projects and initiatives.
And Sagi, from the owner's perspective, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think, from an operations level, it's, I think it's essential when you look at, something in specific like the electricity usage at the property. We're looking at partnering with investors to front capital to not only add solar panels, but then also work with the new technology that's coming out with regards to battery storage. That allows battery storage to really work in a multifamily capacity where it can share that battery storage among multiple units, where conventionally a battery just stores it for one individual home, where, they're solving with that battery storage component where you can really share it with multiple units. And that essentially allows your property to become its own little power station, which can then drive additional revenue. It can give residents a discount on their electricity rates because you can sell it to them at a cheaper rate when you're, generating power from solar panels, which I think coupled with battery storage is a real, it's a real proposition value add to both residents and owner operators.
And Mick, do you have anything that you see that's different based on the vertical of affordable? Is there differences that you see there?
Yeah, I'd say when we think of projects, we're really thinking incrementally. What can we add to in most cases an existing building? So the two questions we ask ourselves is, one, can we do it? Right? Can it physically, technically be done? And then the second question is, of course, is it worth doing? One of the kind of nuances we've discovered in affordable is a couple of things. Very, very low turnover, right? So you don't have a lot of turn opportunities to change things. It's also very difficult from a regulatory perspective to change who pays for what. So that really constrains our ability to monetize certain capital investment. And then you have the misaligned, split incentives, right? We invest the capex, but the resident on the direct meter might capture the savings. So those are the things we actually need to navigate for each project. So each building is kind of different. On top of that, you've got different tariff structures. And one of the things, right, there's incentives, but the underlying driver of value is actually utility costs. And we don't want to lose sight of that. And nothing's going to change with that depending on one administration or the other. So that's kind of the long-term play, is what's happening with tariffs, where do we see them going, and how can we recoup some of that value, right, or avoid some of those future escalating costs through these investments.
Makes you get creative, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would also say that, what we've seen a lot is that, and I mean, again, if you bring it back to EV charging, it's the uptake of the new technologies, right? And so I think that owners need to be thinking, as you mentioned, I think before, not only about the regulatory environments and, planning for the future, but also where people are going societally, right? And so, if there is more EV adoption, more EV penetration, if owners aren't thinking about that, and this is just one specific example, obviously, about that today, it can take 6 to 12 months to get, for instance, chargers in, or whatever other type of technology you're putting in there, depending on what people want and what people are demanding. And so you do have to be a little bit more forward looking in terms of, how you're planning for some of these technologies.
And I also think in affordable, you really need to understand your demographic cohort. So if you go in a parking lot and you say the average car age there is 15 years old, which is like the 2 cars I have in my driveway, it may not be, you may not be able to have people show up with chargers. If you go into another, say, a market rate building or a college dorm, it may be very different. So it's very important. We all talk about energy data and things like that, but having your demographic data for the investments you're going to make is really what matters.
Yeah. Well, and just to say something that you said, Ben, for companies that aren't thinking ahead, there might not be the energy supply there once they're ready, right? The bandwidth on the transformers, or, the just availability. So that's something that I think a lot of people aren't realizing, that, there's not energy forever from every utility.
And also, I mean, just at the property level, as I'm sure everybody here knows, is they own properties and have to manage them. You might not just have capacity on that panel or at that property, and it takes, 12 months to go talk to PG&E to get an interconnect, or longer, right? So again, it becomes all down to the capital planning perspective. And, as you said, as demographics, you got to look at the demographics. I always ask for like a car rent roll, right? And so you see what's at the property today, but then also we know that, again, specific to the EV industry, there's a lot of cheap EVs under $30,000 from Ford coming online. A lot of Teslas. You're going to get a great deal on a Tesla. Second used Tesla, great deal coming up on it for Tesla. So, all these things, we might see societal changes here in terms of, how these things are looking down the road.
So about a third of our affordable portfolio is senior affordable.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
a lot of
totally
different.
different.
A lot of people don't drive, so it's really getting all,
Golf carts.
Right.
We'll electrify golf carts.
That's actually really
The
good.
minibuses.
We should
the
get into that
minibuses they
business.
take, right?
I will say there's something to be said about build it and they will come, because at a couple of our properties in specific, we didn't really have any EVs because we also didn't have the infrastructure for it. So we worked with our local EV provider, and also
Prospects are looking for it, and if you don't have it, they're not coming.
yeah,
That makes
utilizing those rebates, getting that installed free of cost to the property, but then before you know it, there's 4 or 5 Teslas rolling in, and residents are looking for it. They're asking for it when they're coming in to rent a unit. So it's a good value out there.
Yeah, and any owners looking to put in EVs anytime soon, just to expand on what Ben was saying, working with utilities is like getting the cable guy to come out, right? Like you make an appointment, they might show up in 3 months when they say, they might show up in 6 months, they might never show up. You might have to call back again. Like it is really like they'll make an appointment and it has nothing to do with when they actually show up. They could be very quick and very helpful at this utility at this time and totally unhelpful and not showing up at all, at a different utility. So it is a total shot in the dark. So you have to give yourself a lot of wiggle room in your timing for those types of developments.
And also, I think that anybody who has a large portfolio, to your point, knows this, but each jurisdiction, each utility, especially when you get up into, some of the states where it's like your local, electric cooperative. That's a whole different ballgame, right? So it really becomes very jurisdictional and very regionally specific.
And something I was just going to point out also, for anybody who's working with student housing, that ends up being more of, they're looking for gamification, right? In student housing, they want to see rewards. They want to be part of it. They want to have Instagram accounts dedicated, to the different projects, or, the leasing staff taking pictures with their new EVs, or, it becomes a much different type of project, as well as having the benefit to going kind of against what you were saying, Mick, for a regular, affordable, and senior student. Actually, 100% of them turn every summer. So you actually have this great opportunity for infrastructure upgrades that does not affect your tenant base.
I wish we were in student housing. I think there's a lot of really amazing things you could do and keep incrementally adding.
Yeah.
100% each year.
Yes. And I think, it has its own challenges and opportunities, as every vertical, but I think specifically for sustainability, it has a lot of opportunity that people are not really digging into yet for that purpose alone. Okay, hold on. I need my glasses again. I was a mistake.
Next time you
A
use
bigger size.
14.5.
I know. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so our next topic. How should multifamily stakeholders think about sustainability-driven features such as energy-efficient upgrades, renewables, EV charging, as long-term infrastructure rather than short-term amenities? And we're going to start, let's have Ben start.
Just off the top, it is long-term infrastructure. That is, you need to have the right capital matched with the right type of investment. And so, I think that a lot of what we've even talked to with real estate owners is a lot of them will put in, something, whether that's charging or some other amenity. And, they're like, well, I'm going to only hold this for 5 years and then it's going to be the next guy's problem. Right. And that's a fine, approach to take, especially if you're looking to just drive NOI and things of that sort. But then you also end up getting a lot of stranded assets, right? Because people are not incentivized necessarily to take care of them, especially if you have another owner coming in or another investor coming in order to make that investment initially, as you mentioned, like on the battery side of things or even on the solar side of things, right? You want to make sure that, especially if you're partnering with another provider in order to come in and not only put the capital up in order to put in those assets, but then also to manage them on an ongoing basis, you have the right capital, the right term length of capital with the right term of investment, right? So, for instance, what we do is we are a long-term infrastructure investor. We are very patient capital. We are doing this on 10 to 20-year time horizons, so that it's not only just about the current owner, depending on their hold period for the real estate, but it's on the future owners as well. And so we are incentivized to continue to make sure that those assets are continuing to function for everybody.
Well, and EVs and batteries they are a long-term strategy.
Absolutely.
They're not just a nice to have, because you will have to continue to invest more and add more as demand requires, right? And as more energy is needed. That is not an easy or simple do it once, one and done.
It's not a set it and forget it investment, right? It's just like a lot of folks don't want to do laundry themselves or something, right? It's something that has to constantly be managed. There's a lot of O&M associated with it. So having, again, the right capital provider or the right partner, I should say, in order to make sure that it continues to function correctly, and they're incentivized to make it continue to function correctly.
Yeah, you got to stay. That's one you have to stay on top of, and I think a lot of owners don't understand that. Sagi, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I think, whenever you consider, a sustainability initiative for your property, it's really cost benefit analysis. Obviously, you want to look long term, but at the same time, you don't just want to be sustainable for the sake of saying you're sustainable. You want it to ultimately drive your NOI, at least as an operator, because, market rents kind of flatlining, right? So if you find other ways to generate revenue for your property through these sustainability efforts, EV charging, smart home technology, solar energy, while also reducing controllable expenses like, working with low flow toilets or plumbing initiative incentives, LED lighting programs. So, those two together can really drive your NOI forward, even in market conditions where, market rents are kind of flatlining a bit.
Yeah. I mean, having come from an asset management background, I feel like all the sustainability programs I ever rolled out had an NOI rationale, right? Like it has the benefit. To anyone who doesn't think sustainability programs, have value add to properties, like there's very few companies in business that don't drive value in some way, shape, or form, but you just have to understand what that is in order to make sure you're using it in the best possible way and make it accretive to your portfolio. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think we've touched on a lot of them organically, which is just great through conversation. But EV charging has just kind of moved from a nice to have to a must have. I think no longer are you checking a box. It's one of those where owners and operators are seriously sinking capital into this infrastructure and they're future proofing. It's short sighted to just say, hey, we're only going to put 2 chargers at the property because, that's all the residents have asked for. No, take advantage of the rebates and incentives out there, maximize it, put as many as you can now. Because honestly, 80% of charging takes place where people work and where people live. So just like you charge your phone at night at 10 o'clock when you go to bed and you wake up at 6 a.m. the next day, you don't care how long it took to charge as long as you got 100% of the charge. So the same thing is happening in EV charging now. And, you just have to be forward thinking about it because if the demand is not there now, you build it, they will come. And, to Ben's point earlier, just patient. It's an infrastructure play. So that's my thoughts.
All right, Mick, long-term infrastructure versus short-term amenity. What do you think?
So like I say, for our field, part of the industry, the amenities are hard to fund incrementally. So what we look for are things that are going to benefit our residents. So battery storage is an interesting example. It can add resilience depending on how it's wired. I mean, you're adding a lot of automatic transfer switches and isolation if you want to do it. But what's been interesting is we say, okay, how can we extract value from this? So with a battery, you can do demand response in some markets, demand management, and what I would call tariff arbitrage. If you've got that, what you really have to do is look into the weeds of each building, right? How much load, how much can you control? And also what's the underlying utility structure and what programs are in there. So we try to look a little bit less. I mean, I'd say we're very good at finding other people's money to do CapEx projects, but the long-term value that you said is what's going to be the revenue stream that's going to be created by this investment.
Yeah.
So.
Right, to affect the market value,
Right.
the end value, right. Okay, next topic. Okay, how are you leveraging technology, energy management systems, and strategic partnerships to maximize existing infrastructure while avoiding unnecessary CapEx? Ben, you want to take the first one?
So I'm not a property owner,
That's right.
but I can speak to that a little bit. We do that as an infrastructure investor as well. I partner with people like Jeremy at Switch, because we don't want to take hardware and software risk, right? We are an investor. We want to do what we do best, which is deploy capital and run Excel spreadsheets. I don't personally do that anymore, but some people on our team do. And then leave, the hardware and software product development to those people that know how to do that type of stuff. So I think, that's how we diversify away as an investor as well, in terms of, we want to not focus on technology ourselves. We want to make sure that the people that are best able to do that are going to build the best technology, and then we just get our pick of the litter.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy, thoughts?
Yeah. So when Switch was created, it was essentially, its ethos is deploying chargers at scale without having to do infrastructure upgrades. And as the years have gone on, we've just advanced the technology. So what we essentially do is we go into energy constrained buildings, a lot of the time being retrofits. So much of the US housing stock is so old. They were not thinking about EV chargers 15, 20 years ago when they were built. A lot of the stock was built in the 70s and the 80s. So what we are doing is we are deploying chargers at mixed load panels. They don't have brand new EV charging dedicated panels. And via smart software, smart hardware, and load management capabilities that reside at the panel level, you can still deploy chargers at scale. Granted, maybe they're not firing on all cylinders, producing 100% of the charge at full time, especially if you have a dock full of cars charging. But what it is doing is it's essentially daisy chaining. So these chargers and the cars are so smart now, where they're essentially speaking to each other. And they're saying, you're almost at 80%, but this car is almost at 30%. How do we offset that energy? So the game has absolutely changed, as it pertains to this energy management game, because there's just so many incredible different pieces of hardware and software out there that can allow you to do that without having you to bring in brand new transformers, panels, breakers, the whole 9 yards, which only delays projects. So utilizing the smart technology is everything.
And I would say that this is a plug for Switch, is that they, as somebody who looks at all the technology in the market, again, if we speak specifically about EV charging, they have really done a great job at product development in order to make it so that you can have a load constrained panel and they can still deploy chargers at that panel and make it work, and it becomes much more financially viable. And I think taking that to a higher level, not just in the EV space, that's what you're really looking for, right? People that are continuing to innovate or die, right? So people that are continuing to innovate in a lot of these areas in sustainability and elsewhere, and that's really where you're going to get a lot of impact on these new technologies.
Thanks, Ben.
And I know I tried to roll out EVs at several properties where the utility just said there was not enough room on the transformer, and we're just stuck. So it's interesting. New solutions coming out to solve that problem. Siggy?
Yeah, I think, some things that we've done aside, EVs are a hot topic right now, but smart home technology has been really big for us because, some of the product could be 80s, 90s. Renters are still tech savvy. They still have smartphones. They still want those features, and they're not homeowners to be able to invest that in their home. So utilizing smart home tech to, add smart thermostats or smart lighting, and I'll give them the power to automate that and be more efficient in their climate control, their lighting, and help them reduce utility efforts, I think really helps that sustainability aspect, and again, drives some revenue and justifies that CapEx spend.
And a lot of times you can reduce the CapEx significantly if you actually know where to look for the incentives and rebates. And there's whole companies now that's all they do is give you a report with the incentives and rebates available. So if this is a good year to do smart thermostats or EV charging stations or whatever it is. But I think a lot of people just end up spending the money or not doing the project. And they don't actually know to go out and look for those things. So make sure you're going out to look. Mick, thoughts here?
Yes, I'd say some of the things we actually look at are, loss prevention, right? So flood detection, HVAC and humidistats that can tell, do we have the conditions that are conducive for growing mold? Right? And when you get some of these things, they dwarf by, 1 or 2 orders of magnitude what you're actually saving on the energy side. So even if you think about leak detection, I say there are leaks that cost a lot of money in water, but do very little damage, right? So 97% of our leaks are toilet flappers, waste a lot of water, but but don't really do damage. But the slow leaks that you don't detect, like how, a building with 250 units, they've got a 30-gallon electric tank in each unit. You don't really know about it until it's a 1 or 2 floor problem. So it's important not to lose sight of that. The other trend I would say is that if you imagine every solution provider comes in with their own set of sensors, right, their own IoT device, their own gateway, somehow they're taking data, getting it up to the cloud and running some analytics and giving us actionable information. The trend I'm starting to see now is this convergence of, right, what's everything we need on either our side of the house or the resident side of the door, and seeing, like, so access control, leak detection, HVAC controls, maybe some lighting. That's starting to come together in alarm.com. Everyone's starting to package this together, and that's something I think that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, like market standard.
Well, yeah, the same. What's
Yeah.
everything we need? And rather than having 5 companies with 5 gateways with all, and then if you were at any of these IT security things, you're seeing every one of these gateways creates a vulnerability. Seeing this stuff start to wrap together and almost hardware agnostic, but the function is really what's important. What are you doing, and what are you trying to control?
Right, because it's like all around the data.
Right.
Yeah. It's like whether it's leak data or temperature, humidity. Okay. How are you designing sustainability programs that drive ongoing resident participation and loyalty and not just initial interest? I believe Mick, let's see. Sagi, did you have an answer for this one?
I think
Scott was going to, so I wasn't
yeah.
sure.
No, I get it. No, totally. I think ultimately we look at what do residents need? What do they want? Obviously, you want to look forward. EV chargers for us, not being a vendor, but being an owner operator. We, initially thought infrastructure, EV chargers, the renter based, they don't necessarily drive EVs, but we found as we've tested it out, we've invested in the infrastructure in our properties, we do see that coming to light, and the usage is increasing, the adoption is moving forward. I think it, from that perspective, we have that competitive advantage, which is really essential, especially in excess supply markets. It's a difference maker for the properties.
And Mick, thoughts here?
We were actually just talking before, my colleague, resident participation is, depending on the demographic, is very, very different. It's probably the most challenging. Only after resident access to the units. So we really try to think about what are things we can do that are kind of foolproof, that maybe they don't even know about that we're doing, but improves their experience and also can't be overridden. So even if you think about controls, like we spoke about mold. We had an example where it was direct metered building, resident pays for electricity. We pay for mold remediation. So we were getting mold because they weren't running their air conditioner in the summer. So it's thinking about what are the constraints, right? If you don't give people enough heat, they'll turn on you see the cooking gas go up. So these things that are not intuitive, you really need to think about what do we need
correlations, right?
What do we need to provide them, and what's the best way of doing it to make everyone comfortable and happy. So even with some of the setbacks you would put on HVAC controls, you always want to give them the option to override it.
Yeah. 9
times out of 10 they won't, but it's trying to get that, the 80% solution, because I think when you force something down, everyone will find a way around it.
Well, and it depends. When I was an asset manager, I would say most of the time we would try to make it where it didn't look optional.
Right.
Like it seemed like they had to, even though they technically could opt out of programming.
Right.
But there was many things like that where we just made it part of the leasing package or the renewal package. And when we...
Like if we were to put set points, for instance, right? Set points in a schedule.
Yeah.
We want to give them that opportunity to override it, but most of the time it'll be
right.
effective.
The default.
Yeah.
Right. And then beyond that, I found that resident event participation in programs really come down to 3 things. If you can't make it required or seem required, it comes down to, does it make their life easier? Does it make them more comfortable, or does it save them money? That's normally those 3 things that will get them to get on board and stay on board. right? It has to look like it's coming from a place of the resident motivation versus like corporate ESG goals, right? It has to look like it's for them, by them kind of thing. So whether it's demand response or a community garden or composting, recycling, you have to bring that into the brand of the property. You talk about it at leasing, you talk about it at renewal, you talk about it on your website, your staff talks about it. It has to become part of your overall brand of the property, so people are proud of that and see it as the default of what that property is about. We did a lot of gamification and tying these types of programs to either rewards for accomplishing certain goals, or we'd have competitions, stairwell challenges where people had to take the stairs, or, for health and wellness stuff, or, energy savings, the floor that had the best energy savings, won an award, or, we would use the overall community savings if they hit that certain goal to fund some of their resident events for the quarter. Having an Instagram page where you're taking pictures of the people in their community garden, or, the mural that you put on the property for social improvement, like whatever that sustainability program is, it needs to be visual. It has to be integrated with their community and have their participation. And I feel like that is generally a way that things stick and are more sustainable.
You've raised a really good point. I mean, most of us, I think here are technologists or engineers. I mean, really what we need is almost need a behavioral psychologist to help design these programs, which are, I have to say, we haven't even thought about that. But as you said, the ResiDR is a win-win, and we tried running a couple of pilots, and I think we got 3% participation. So it's not easy. That part is I'd say the most challenging part of this business.
It's a lot of marketing too, right? Yeah. Especially for the people under 30, one of the best ways to get participation is influencers. Yeah. What real estate company do you know that's using influencers? I doubt any. But they should be. Mm-hmm. This is the way that the current generation relates to advertising, to programming. So, there's a lot of getting creative to figuring it out. Yeah.
Especially if you own properties in LA, maybe.
Yeah, it's a good idea, the influencer model. I think it's
yeah.
The other thing I would just add to that is that we actually, not as much of a technologist. Again, we let the technologists do that stuff, but we actually do really look at demographics, and we look at a lot of, societal trends, and specifically, obviously, EV penetration and utilization curves and all those different types of things. And so I do think that bringing it up again to a higher level is, if you, as property owners, and your job is to buy and sell and lease real estate, right? You're not necessarily thinking about how it pertains to these specific demographics or these specific societal trends for a specific technology. If you do partner with somebody who is very focused on that, then they can bring that type of understanding and those insights into how you guys are rolling out those different technologies.
Yeah, it's almost like you need consultants.
Exactly.
Yeah. Consultants for everything.
That's right.
Okay.
Partners.
Partners. Okay. We'll call them partners. Looking ahead 10 years, which sustainability investments made today will feel as fundamental as broadband or smart access? And what bold decisions are you making now to stay ahead of that shift? Mick, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'd say certainly the bread and butter is going to be energy efficiency and water efficiency and utility interoperability, right, which I would say EVs are a set of that. The other thing I think is starting to happen now is this convergence of the information we have, management practices, and risk and loss management. And that people talk about it, people intellectually get it, but you're really not seeing that in underwriting and insurance. And I think our by far our most rapidly escalating cost is insurance. So on the one hand, you've got all this great stuff you can know, all these remediations and actions you can take to reduce loss. But the other hand, your basic pricing is, when was it built? What's the zip code? And what's the construction material? The other thing we noticed is really collecting the right data around loss, because I'm sure like most of you, right? The deductible is $100,000, right? And anything under $100,000 until recently was quite invisible in our company, right? Small floods, small fires, were just going into a maintenance budget. So we didn't know what was causing them, and there's certainly readily available tech to help reduce that. So that's where I think the big trend is going to happen. And the problem now is it's hard to quantify the ROI on that investment. Like, you know it's there, but because you don't have the underlying data, you can't do that, as opposed to a leak in a toilet that's 1.3 cents a gallon or something like that.
But I bet with the rise of AI and these maintenance software apps and stuff, probably figuring out trends and causation will make that like have a lot bigger ROI if you figure out that the pipes on the west side of all the buildings are fundamentally more susceptible to the weather or whatever it is.
Like we've had a number of discussions with insurance companies, and they said if you think the real estate industry is slow to adopt, look at insurance. Look at insurance. I imagine that gap has to close soon, just because of all the things we can actually be doing on the operational side.
I think it's crazy that sustainability isn't part of insurance, like in real estate companies. Like,
you're seeing some of it on the
risk.
big climate risk.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing it like on all the smart building stuff that we can do.
Right. But even in the building stuff, it's still about risk, right? It's either risk fee risk, for carbon, or if it's water damage, whatever it is, it's all risk. Okay, so then let's see. I think Ben, you were going to speak to this one as well about sustainability investments made today that will feel fundamental, as fundamental as access control or smart access, broadband.
I think it goes back to exactly what was just said. I think it goes all back to energy and things of that sort, right? It's just these fundamental things that are going to impact the way that we live. And, energy is a massive one. And obviously it goes to grid resilience and everything that's happening with AI and all the concerns around, AI is going to drive up my energy costs and all these things. I think eventually it's going to actually be beneficial to all of us and every other industry that relies on electricity, because it's going to force, again, this grid resilience. It's going to force technologies like, micronuclear, right? Like stuff like that didn't necessarily, kind of had fits and starts, and maybe their technology is there, but it didn't have again, the economics weren't there to support it. So I do believe that, that those types of things are going to help perpetuate and help create a quality of life, and probably end up maybe even bringing down the cost of electricity in the medium to the long term.
Oh, that'd be nice. I was also going to add probably the thing that I see that to me seems like will eventually become market standard is geothermal. Anybody's not very familiar with it. It's using the temperature of the earth to help heat your properties.
Or even heat pumps.
Ground source heat pumps. They're amazing. I want one for my house. I don't have one yet though. But, it's dealing with energy fluctuation, the cost of energy fluctuation. It's dealing with comfort. It is a whole solution. It's not just offsetting part of the cost. It is covering the entire thing. And it is one of the few, innovations one of the few products within renewables that both parties, whether you're left side, right side, both love geothermal, and they're not getting rid of the incentives and rebates. So both sides can agree this is an amazing thing for the future. And I just think this is something that's going to become much more standard, and obviously then the costs go down, and so that's one of my big things I'm excited about. So do we have time for one more question? Okay. What is the one new exciting tool that you've seen emerging in a startup that's not common in the market today, but you think has great potential? Ben, you want to go first?
I think I'd go back to micronuclear. I think that is, again, it's a technology that's been out there, but again, I think it's becoming more financially viable. And also, there's been a stigma against nuclear kind of in this country and around the world. And I think that we might get over that soon.
Yeah, I think I've seen a stat where it's like less people have died in nuclear issues than ever in history than in 1 year from coal emissions.
It's like you really don't want a nuclear plant next to your house, but like,
Right.
does it really?
It's actually like current technology is super safe. It's like, yeah, I think it just has a bad rap. Mick, what do you think?
I think really energy storage and different methods for energy storage. As you know, in like New York City, you can't put a lithium battery in a building. There's different chemistries that are looked at. I saw another company that has a liquid desiccant gradient
The
using
solid state batteries.
energy storage. Yeah, so
cool.
that's the area that's going to happen. This idea of, as you mentioned, like energy abundance, but also not just how much there is, but when it's used, and can you the ability to shift that load. You can already see is worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's
makes
going to
sense.
grow.
Pull it off while it's cheap and use it when it's expensive, right?
Right.
Yeah. Siggy?
Yeah, I think just to echo what he said, battery storage I think is key. We've been working with a company based in Hawaii that has been working on battery storage, which specifically for Hawaii where their energy is not super reliable. So they're developing technology to specifically tailor it to multifamily, where you can compartmentalize that battery and send signals out to each particular unit, even though it's not, it doesn't require one dedicated battery per apartment. And I think that's just only scratching the surface. If you pair that with AI technology to make it more intelligent, to spread that power as needed, I think that's clearly the future there.
Yeah. Jeremy?
I'm not sure of the actual company name, but there's about a 1/4-mile strip in Michigan where there are coils underneath the road and you can drive on it and it'll electrify your car, truck. It's pedestrian friendly. I think it's just the beginning of something that's really cool. Just to be able to just charge while you drive. I feel like that is just the future. So
I think I've seen some of those tests in Asia, right? They
Yeah,
were
I think
testing
they're
them
out
out
in
there
Asia.
first. Yeah.
Yep.
They're really cool. I didn't know if you have to have a special kind of car to do that though. Like other than an EV, obviously, but
Yeah, I think there is some sort of special mechanism for like the actual vehicle itself to integrate with the road. But if that becomes mainstream, that's cool.
then the one I actually was going to talk about, it's sort of similar, not more of the pavers that are kinetic based, where it actually generates energy based on people walking on it. I don't know if you guys have seen these. There's a bunch of companies that are starting out with that, but I think the amount of traffic we have in the big cities, like just imagine the amount of energy you can create if sidewalks were able to be made of these. I mean, it's insane. The amount of, at least for the cities, it would power, tons of the infrastructure.
You
Anyway,
could outfit 24-hour fitness treadmills with those pavers.
that's a good idea. I like that. Treadmills that generate energy.
I saw in Finland, I believe it was, they're putting all the data centers under the ground so that way they're naturally, all the heat and the excess is actually melting any snow that is on the pedestrian walkways.
That's smart.
brilliant.
I like it. You don't have to have the salt trucks. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to my panelists. I really appreciate it. It was nice talking with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to
Kelly.
our excellent panel for your insights.